Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Books and Bevvies episode. This is our quarterly buddy read discussion that we have here at Genre Blender. I'm Kris, this is Ryan, and the book that we will be chatting about today is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Oh, do we have slightly different colorings?
Yeah, we got the different versions. I noticed that on Goodreads actually. Mine's a lighter grey for some reason.
Interesting. I
Mine's
think
the
I
Book
like.
of the Year edition.
Okay, I didn't get any with a silly sticker on it. No
Yeah,
offense to your silly sticker.
I agree.
All right, so I'm going to hand over to Ryan to give us a bit of a synopsis. We'll keep this relatively spoiler-free until we don't, but we'll give people a warning about that.
Yeah, we'll just go through the synopsis as spoiler free, and then we're going to get into spoilers, so you'll know. We'll tell you. So Babel is so it's a book by R.F. Kuang. It's a dark academia fantasy novel set in kind of an alternative version of Britain in the 1830s. And the story follows the character of Robin Swift, who's a boy who's born in Canton in China, and his family dies from an outbreak of cholera. It's happens very early in the story, and he alone survives because of a mysterious individual who kind of just shows up and saves his life and sort of whisks him away back to England. To get an education at this mythical Babel, which is like the Royal Institute of Translation in Oxford. And then he befriends a group of students who are in a similar situation to him, being born in other sort of colonized nations and brought to England for an education, just like he was. And he and through Robin, us as readers as well, then discover more about Babel and kind of what it's all about, the real reason for its existence, which is the creation of these silver bars, which are basically it's the magic system of the story. They have these word inscriptions on them from different languages, and the whole way that and we'll talk more about this in a minute, but the whole way that the magic system of this story works is really, really interesting. It's to do with language, and it's to do with like basically the lost in translation portion of what gets translated when you convert one word to another. There's always something that's not quite exact, and that's where this comes from. And there's a whole section of that. So we'll dive into that a little bit more. But essentially, the whole story is about Robin learning his place in the great machine of the British Empire and grappling with that throughout the story.
Which sounds great.
Yes,
in
it does.
theory. But this was your first R.F. Kuang, right?
Mhm.
Same with myself. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the first time that I picked anything up by her. I've been curious about her work for a while, though.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still curious about the Poppy War. You can't see it; it's on the shelves behind me,
Mhm.
and that is more, I guess, of a classic fantasy story. Whereas this one, I mean, it is depicted as historical fantasy, but it really felt quite fantasy light outside of the bars and the magic that these bars held, but really that was almost the magic of language itself, delving into that, which I'm sure we'll touch upon later. But what were your initial thoughts? Because you went into this not knowing a lot about it.
Intentionally, because I knew enough to know that it might be something I'd be interested in. And like you, I'm also interested a little bit in the Poppy Wars. I know it's more fantasy. I don't know why I'm interested. I think it's the cover, to be honest. It looks really
How
nice.
beautiful. I love a
Yeah.
white cover with a pop of color in it.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
anyway, this video is not about the Poppy War.
Maybe down the track. Yeah. Um, but this one, because I knew how good or how well received that book was, and then this one, I guess to a point as well, though I didn't really read reviews intentionally, I kind of just wanted to know nothing about it other than it's to do with language and it's set in like an academic kind of setting. But I agree, I wouldn't really call it fantasy so much. Like, it is, but it's also not really the point of the book.
Mm.
And I think it's even dark academia to a point is kind of misleading. I would say it's really more alternate history. It's like an alternate history fantasy is what I would probably be comfortably leaving it as.
It's quite interesting because I went into this one. I didn't know a lot about it either, but I did go into this very honestly with bias going into Babel
You did, yes.
because of how I read and how I like to read, and I do like themes and digging deeper into what I'm reading. But I thought this book was going to be pretentious as hell. going into it, and because of that, I was like, Ryan's going to love this because of the
Thanks.
pretentiousness of it. And just hearing, so I haven't read any reviews, but I have heard like clips of RF Kuang speaking,
Mm.
and she's very, very well spoken.
Yeah.
She's an incredibly intelligent person to
Yeah,
listen
she's an
to.
academic through and
She's
through,
an
and
academic,
she
yeah.
doesn't hide that fact. Yeah.
And that does come through in this book, but I ended up, I guess, spoiler alert for like further discussion, enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would,
Hmm.
even though it's like not a new favorite at all. But I did genuinely have a good time with the language that was being used in the book, and it has made me intrigued to pick up something else by the author. And I know that some people like love the Poppy War and then hated this, so it'd be really interesting to see where I
Yeah.
land
Yeah, for
on
sure.
the Hour of Kwong journey, but it wasn't like the first time where we were talking about, I don't even remember the author's name, Butter, that we both read, and we didn't even do a
Mm.
Books and Bevvies episode on it, where we were both just chatting about it, that we're not really sure if we'd pick up another book by that author, because it just didn't work for us. But with this one, not my favorite, but I'm absolutely interested in
Mm.
reading more from Hour of Kwong.
Yeah, same. And we'll talk about it more in detail. But I think something you said there, which is like the actual, her writing, and that she's an academic, right? Like that, I think helps to carry this book a lot. It does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it tickle you in the ways that I thought it would tickle you?
Yes and no. No-
Keep
I
it
know what
in.
you mean by like I don't know if the listeners would know what you meant.
Whatever, Ryan's been tickled.
I've been tickled by Babel. It's sort of it simultaneously was and wasn't what I expected it to be.
Mhm.
The language and the academia side of things, and we'll get more into spoilers in a sec, but this is still kind of spoiler free for now. That was what I expected, and I loved that part of it. The way it talks about language and translation, and the way that the magic system has been designed. Like I love all of that. The
It's
rest of it,
fascinating,
though,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research that's gone into this book, and it's and you can tell.
Mhm.
But the actual story, I'm not sure where I land on it. And I left. I finished the book last night. We both finished it yesterday. This is how close
This is a
we left it.
cram to get in. We were like,
Yeah,
oh, we've got an episode. We've got to talk about this book. We got to go.
we
we got to
just
read
made
this
it.
thing. Yeah.
It's what 500 odd pages. Um, yeah, about 550. It does a lot in that amount of space, but I also finished it last night feeling, and I left off feeling kind of numb to the story. And I'm not sure how I should have felt or what the intention was,
Mhm.
or, what I should have taken away from it, but I'm not sure that was the intention to leave it feeling. So anyway, we'll dive more into that, but I'm not sure. I honestly don't know how I feel about this book. I loved certain parts of it, and then certain parts I feel just really didn't work at all.
And surprisingly, I agree with you,
Mm.
which I didn't expect would be the outcome of this reading experience. But I really loved the conversations around language and translation and how that affects the way that people look at words and just script, and I thought that was fascinating and fantastic, and I love the magic with the and having to find the correct match pairs to really get the effect that you wanted within different languages, and I thought that was amazing, to the point where I think I'm going to take this to Brisbane and give it to my aunt, who's very linguistically gifted, and be
Mhm.
like, this is something that you might enjoy.
Yeah.
Plot though, question mark.
Yes.
The actual story itself, I could not. I felt so lukewarm at the end of this book, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of it like off my shelves. Like it's something that I
Oh yeah.
probably would revisit,
Mm.
just because I liked what I liked. Part out of it was fantastic, and I loved those elements of it.
Yeah.
But before we jump into spoilers, just still for people who are watching who want spoiler-free thoughts, let's go through the themes because I think we can still do that relatively spoiler-free because the themes in this book
Maybe.
smack you over the head and it beats you into submission.
Yeah, indeed. This is very true. But this is where, like, I didn't know about that going into it. And maybe that was to its detriment because maybe had I known that, I would have felt differently. Um, but I feel like that's kind of spoiler territory. At least it was for me. So
Okay.
I would say if you're, I mean, hopefully if you're watching this, if you're listening, you've read the book, and I think most people have read the book at this point. It's not super new.
We're very late to the hype train.
Yeah, yeah.
But
There's the
we're
newest
both
one.
allergic to hype train, so it makes sense that we've picked this up now, years after.
Yeah. So it's semi spoiler warning at this point. We'll probably get into it now. The biggest one, and I feel like we should get this one out of the way first, because I feel like what you're alluding to there is the theme of colonialism. Like, it explores colonialism and doesn't just use it as like there's no analogies, there's no like allegory to it. It's literally, it is a book about colonialism. That's what it is. And I didn't know that going into
very literally in some aspect.
Yeah.
And I actually think this is something that is, I guess, I want to touch on how you felt about the themes as well, because I said something in our Discord where I was like, there's something that's really annoying me about this book, and it's not the themes, because I think the themes are incredibly important, and I appreciate the book for being quite blunt in the themes. But what was shitting me about the main theme of colonialism here, and a lot of the themes, like, it definitely wears its heart on its sleeve, was that we would be exploring sentences or whatever where we're like talking about colonialism, but then it would have like a literal sentence being like, this is what we're talking about, and I was like, you could have left that literal sentence away. Like, I got it. It's very clear what this is about.
It's, I think, even like, here's the weird thing, and this is what I was kind of talking about when we were chatting about it on the Discord during the buddy read, and I said something along the lines of like, I feel like this is an important book for right now. And right, and you said the same thing as well, and I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad it is as direct as it is, but I also feel annoyed by that, and then I'm annoyed at myself for feeling annoyed, because I feel like it's important enough that it shouldn't be any different from how it is. But I also feel like, and I was thinking about this more and more over the last week, its target audience is probably slightly, people who are interested in languages, slightly academic, or at least interested in those concepts or themes anyway. And so I feel like it kind of hits you over the head with these themes, but it does it to the wrong audience, if that makes sense. It's preaching to the choir, right? Yeah.
It was really getting under my skin, particularly in those first two parts, which I think, I mean, we've got pacing to talk about, so I won't. I don't want to delve too far into this, but the first 2 to 3 books parts are a lot slower in the way that they move, and I preferred that personally. And that's where, like, just really drilling in those themes and like hitting you over the head with it. And then once we get to like the second or the last third of the book, it becomes really fast paced, and it was almost like those conversations around colonialism, they were certainly still there, but they became so much more literal because there was a plot that had suddenly appeared, and we were trying to follow this plot. And then anytime we talked about it, it wasn't even that it was a theme. It was just sentences about the thing that we were getting as we were reading it. But certainly the biggest theme that we had in here. I also thought classism was really heavy towards the end of the book as the plot started to kick off, and I don't want to leave that one off. I just put it in the notes. Looking through your themes, I feel like this is what, for me anyway, is really important to highlight, particularly in the age that we're living in right now, and we're seeing this shit with oil and the Iran war, and not to get into the politics of what's happening in the world, but we're seeing the rich get richer, and then the middle class and the lower classes are wearing the cost for that. And I think this book also does explore that quite well, or quite abruptly and like in your face. As reading through, and I was like, interesting that we're reading it as what is happening on the planet is currently happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very relevant to right now, and it will continue to be, which is why, like, I think I'm glad it exists, and I think it's really important. But I also did get frustrated by how much I felt like I was being lectured to, which is kind of funny because it is a book about sort of academic life. That side of things I loved, by the way, and I don't usually enjoy books that are kind of origin stories or like a not a rags to riches kind of story, but like going from nothing to having
Mm.
a living well in a first world country, let's just say. Those kinds of stories I'm not usually a big fan of, but I didn't mind it. And then and like you alluded to before, there's different sections of this book. There's actually 5 different books in one, plus a couple of interludes. Is there 2
There's
interludes,
two.
right?
Yeah, you got Letty
Um,
and what's his name,
Rami,
Rami.
yeah. So and each of those is very different in tone, or at least the last 2 are. The first 2 and the middle one, yeah, it's its own thing. So I feel like the first 2 were Robin kind of, we learn who he is and what his origins are and where he gets to and like the education side of things and the introduction to Babel and all of that. But then the last 2, like you said, they kind of there is more lecturing going on about
Mm.
the like colonialism as a theme and then classism. And
And the hypocrisy
the,
of that as well. I found that,
yeah,
and I would have loved more on the hypocrisy of humanity
yeah.
um, in there, but
Yeah,
that was
and
also.
it's in the title, right? Like another theme I wrote here is resistance, which I think it goes in
Mm.
hand in hand with that. And because like the subtitle of this book, like the actual like it's called Babel, but it's called Babel or the Necessity of Violence: An Arcane History of the Oxford Translators' Revolution. That is the name of this book, right? And we'll come back to the structure in a little bit towards the end. But in the name is like this theme of resistance and the necessity of violence and the complexities of that. And I kind of wanted more of that as well. Like it kind of
Mm.
touched on it, but also didn't really say anything.
I thought the plot was cool. It just didn't have time to cook
I feel like it was doing too much. Like it bit off more than it could chew.
in a
Um,
short period of time because I feel like it did not kick in until
mm,
towards the end of the book. And I thought, very rarely will I say, actually, that's a lie. I'm a world building guy. I always want more pages. But I think it could have done with another 100 pages of discovering bits that this plot really relied on for it to work.
Yeah, I felt like I think that the issue that I had, and we'll come back to this in pacing, but it did the micro and the macro thing too much. I
Mm,
feel like it kind of
100%.
didn't know what it wanted to be, or wanted to be too many things, and therefore didn't do really well at any of
Mm.
them. But that's not to say it was a bad book either. It wasn't. It's good and it has great things in it. So I think I'm just frustrated by it because I think I can see what she was trying to do, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure she quite achieved that. And I felt like I was being lectured to. So
I
I'm
was I was
frustrated.
chatting to a mate this morning and I was like, I almost wish the plot wasn't there.
Well,
In a
sure.
way,
Yeah.
I because I would have appreciated um it just being a thematic
Hmm.
book.
Hmm.
And I feel like there was pressure for plot, and there was a lot put on that plot to the point where there are significant plot holes
Yeah.
in the book itself. And I was like, but I loved discovering Babel through this alternate history. I loved the atmosphere and the world they were building, and the pressure of academia and the history of language and what they were trying to do there. And I almost wish we didn't have and I really wanted more from Hermes. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. You listen to the audio, maybe you
Hermes,
can.
the
Hermes, yeah.
Greek god. Yeah.
Which is like this cult like underground revolutionaries. And I was like, if that had more time to cook, it would have been more impactful. But instead, I
Yeah.
feel like the plot was just like slapped in there
Mhm.
for like 150 pages, and then it had this really huge crescendo it fell so flat.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I feel like it should have even been 2 books, like the Robin
Mm.
story and then everything else, or like have a book like you mentioned, like a bigger book that's more thematic and bigger in scope and not tied down by these other stories, and then have a companion book about Robin's story. Like I feel like it was just trying to do too many
Or,
things.
or even the 4 of them, like the
Yeah.
group. I got really frustrated at the interludes, and normally I'm somebody that really loves interludes. Like I love a good interlude where we get just a little smidge of somebody else because I can hate the novella trend.
Aw, it's the best.
Unpopular opinion.
Yes.
I
On this
get
channel, yes.
I get really annoyed when we have book series that have like a novella in between it that you need to read, and I was like, I don't care. I will
Oh,
do it because I want to know, but like I love an interlude that gives me a little insight into a side character,
mhm.
and I really appreciated the footnotes in this book for doing that just a little touch of world building or something snarky that like that put in there or explaining a history, and you're like, okay, cool, that was awesome, and then I moved on. Um, but yeah, the interludes were like I didn't get enough of what I wanted from them. I felt like they were just put there because we had one. So like Rami's sort of made sense, or Rami. And then we had one towards the end. I was like, I can see what the author is trying to do here. And then we had Victoria,
Victoire
um,
in French.
Victoire. Ah, yes. Okay, at the end, thank you. I didn't do the audio, so
Hmm.
I called her Victoria the whole time.
Close enough.
Um, and I was like, but why? Why are they
Yeah.
here? They don't really give me anything new.
Yeah. Um, so I guess two parts to that, right? So the interludes relating to character. We'll come back to character in a minute because I do want to talk about character. But let's touch on the other thing you mentioned, which is like the structure. So you mentioned the footnotes, the interludes, um, and then there's the subtitle. Because
Like,
all of this, right? It reads. It's very much. It's okay. I didn't realize at the time before I read anything of this book. I didn't realize it's doing that playfully. I kind of took
yes.
that to be quite serious, and I thought, oh, it's weird. It's a book with footnotes, but it's a novel. It's a fantasy novel with footnotes. It's got like a really long, pretentious sounding title. I didn't realize she's doing that very playfully because of the academia
Mhm.
setting, and I get that now, and I like it a lot. I think it's really cool and really
They were
awesome to have
actually
more.
funny. Like there
Yeah,
were little bits
yeah,
of humor in there, and I don't like
yes,
funny, but I do like wit, and I did find them
yes.
quite witty.
Definitely. The footnotes, the narrator of the footnotes has a very sarcastic, yeah, very snarky kind of tone. And I was here for it too. I thought that was brilliant. I think she's done those well. That was one of my favorite things of this book was the footnotes. I loved them that much. I think that's absolute genius, really. She's done them. She had that idea, but then she also pulled it off. She executed the
Mm,
idea really well. Um, the interludes, though, I kind of agree. There's only two, and I get why they're there because they're for significant characters that you want to know something more about or something happens to them. But I also feel like they weren't
and they
really.
took away
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
story, unfortunately. I
yeah.
think it may be a couple of footnotes where we got like tiny snippets, like little micro bits, and we did towards the end. We got little micro bits of information about what the plot was doing.
Mhm.
So potentially they could have done that, and even footnotes about the characters and the interactions that they'd had at Babel. So maybe that would have worked better. Just before
Mhm.
we move completely away from themes, I just wanted to ask you a question. So we have some really big themes here, and the ones that sort of hit you over the head. Do you feel like that meant our smaller themes that they've tried to put that R.F. Kuang's tried to put in the book got completely sideswiped? I'm talking about things like found family within these kids, and I feel like
Pretty
that
much.
just
Yeah.
it was there because it's a trope but I didn't feel any connection to that particular theme.
I feel like it's complicated because it's about colonialism and the
Mm,
in cultures and like having when you come from different backgrounds there's these clashes that happen and whatever and there's a big twist relating to characters which we'll talk about in a second. um, so in that regard I feel like you couldn't really have a stereotypical found family theme in the way that most books will do it, and that's fine. But also I feel like because it's about colonialism, that's this big overarching, it's such a monolith of a theme. You can't really have anything else. Everything else fell by the wayside, I feel. Um,
you've
yes.
got in here in your notes the importance and celebration of diversity and culture, and yes, that was in there, but I also feel like that fell flat
I feel like
behind the big ones.
it was there in the language side of things
Oh
and the
yeah,
Robin story, I feel. And then as it shifted tone and we got the other books, and like the last book is like literally like a siege warfare story. Like it changes tone so differently.
it changes everything.
Yeah. So I feel, yeah, all of that. Yes. The answer to your question is yes. I feel like everything else just went away. Yeah. What do
Now
you
we
think?
can move on. Yeah, I really just reading that note, like the celebration of diversity and culture, and I think that was maybe the intention in there, but I
Mhm.
think it got lost a little bit behind the really big theme of like colonialism, bad. So,
Yeah.
and classism also bad, and like the romanticism of language and how cool that is, all very big in here, and I feel like everything else just sort of like was simmering and didn't really get its time to shine.
Yeah. Or similarly, but in the opposite way, the four of them together, the four students together, there was so many lines which were something like Robin will thought back or will think back to this
Mm,
moment where this was the best moment of his life or whatever, something similar to that. There was so much of that, and it's like, yes, you're trying to show how tight knit this group of friends is, and their life together, but like it's also like there were moments where whole years of their academic life were just glossed over in a paragraph or two because you were trying to like move the timeline forward. So I felt like it was like trying to emphasize that, but doing it in a way that just felt a little bit trite, a little bit, I don't know, like it was telling us rather than showing or doing both. It was actually doing both. It
mm.
was like showing us and then,
And then
and
telling, and I think that should
yeah,
be like do one or the
yeah,
other.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
do
It was
both,
too much.
please.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Mm.
I mean, good segue into characters. So I personally didn't like any of them. Zero, 0% of the
I was
characters.
waiting for
I
that
I
actually.
could not give a toss. They fell so flat for me, and I was like, I don't. Whatever. And there's like, okay, spoilers. We're definitely into spoiler territory now. A
Yeah.
bunch of them like die, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I feel nothing towards any of them.
Yep.
Now what?
Same.
Even Robin, I was like, was he a main character, or was he just there the whole time?
He had about as much personality as a wet towel. Like
Yeah,
it literally just, I
it
don't,
was like
why?
cardboard box. And
Yeah.
I was
There's,
like, but he could have, and that's what's
mm,
frustrating
mhm,
because he came from such different circumstances. And like when he started talking about the classism thing and he started to realize his own hypocrisy, I was like, okay, we're getting a little bit of color to this guy. And then it just like that was it. And then he just was just like, oh well, I guess I'll lead a resistance now. And I was like, oh fuck's sake.
that happened way too fast. I was just
Yeah.
like, is this the same character? Like what happened? He just snapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like none of that was earned. And it's weird too because like it'd be fine if it wasn't such a or trying to be such a character focused story, but because we had such like two whole books on Robin and then his
Mm.
life in England, because of all of that, I mean, it felt like I was reading it and thinking, and there's references to this, but like it felt like a Dickens book at first. Like I was like, oh, this is like the quintessential British, English book. Coming from nothing to suddenly having money and wealth and whatever, which is kind of ironic because I think there's a reference to Dickens, or I feel like
There
R.F.
is
Kuang has a lot of
yeah.
shares a lot of sentiments that Robin has about literature, which is really funny. But it felt like that, and then all of a sudden, yeah, towards the end, it's like it's a siege book, and it's like, and now he's leading a revolution, and it's like he has different values now, and I get what she's trying to do there, and it fits the theme of the book, but I don't think any of that was earned. It felt like a light
Mm.
switch, and then things changed.
I was like really racking my brain last night trying to think of do I have a favorite character in this book because they all fell so flat to me. I felt they
Yeah.
all had. I was like potentially Professor Chakravarti. I was like
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
they probably had the most personality out of the entire thing,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
and I was
yeah,
like everyone else couldn't give a toss.
yeah, yeah. I was kind of bummed out that Professor Lovell got the end. Not that he got the end that he did, because that was, I think, almost predetermined. Like we kind of saw that coming, but how it happened, and then we didn't get any exploration of that relationship. I felt like he would have been interesting because he obviously, was.
Two of them would have been more interesting had that conflict played out
Yeah.
between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
But
100%. Yeah, and we didn't get that. And he just, and the way he died as well, like
I
it
mean,
was just
I
such a
saw that
non-event.
coming.
Yeah, but it was like, what happened? Oh, yeah, I felt like the silver was almost I don't know, a way out to quickly
A plot device.
a plot
Just
device.
to, yeah.
Yeah. exactly.
Which, and I loved the idea of the silver. I love the magic behind
Yeah.
it. I love the thought
Mhm.
process behind it. But
Yep.
when that plot kicked off, it felt like there had to be some form of catalyst because it had been too slow up until that point. Something had to happen. So that happened, and that really kickstarted the. I mean, it was really the opium. There was like a point
Yeah.
in the book
Yes.
where there was like an opium like barrels caught on fire, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is now war." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there is a plot."
Right.
Because like, even I felt like
Yeah.
the Hermes, like the little bits that we were fed, they weren't done to the extent that I maybe this is me thing that I would have wanted them to, because I was
Yeah. Same.
intrigued, but I didn't get enough of it. And then all of a sudden they were fucking everywhere, and I was like, I don't care. You haven't built up my care factor for these guys. I don't
Yeah.
care about the relationship between Griffin and Robin. I don't care about like there's not enough intrigue for me to give a shit about any of this. And then it was just plot. And then that plot was super fast, super plot holy, and then it ended. And I was like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
thoughts
Yeah.
and prayers to Babel, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the name of the book kind of indicates what's going to
Yeah,
happen
yeah,
at the end of
yeah.
the story. I feel like I just realized like she didn't create enough bridges between things
No,
for us to be taken on that journey with these characters and with the
it was
plot.
just this to this to this to this.
Yes, and I've just realized that just now when you were talking. I think that's what's wrong there, and maybe that would have been better had there been more pages, but I also don't think so.
I am always going to be biased there. Give me more pages. Give me more slow paced world building, character building. I have trouble giving a shit about characters at the best of times. Like I don't read for character driven stories. So when an author is able to get me invested into a character, I'm like, that's in my mind they've done a good job just knowing who I am as a reader.
Mm,
Uh, and it's not unusual for me to not give a shit about what happens to characters, but I
sure.
really didn't in this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, I
Uh,
really didn't either. Like as you said, like when some of the main characters died, like Rami was probably one of my favorites just because he's a bit of a scallywag and kind like I like that kind of a character anyway. When he died, I was just like, oh, oh well, oh well. I guess you're making a point about like people can just die, like that's the world,
didn't
but
even like
also
believe
didn't
the
care.
betrayal.
What, the
Like, and I was
Bevvies?
yeah,
Mm,
and I was like, okay, like
yeah.
I guess on paper that makes sense, but also she loved him, and I would have liked that to have been more explored instead of like a
Yeah,
sentence being like, oh. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're just meant to believe that now. There's no feeling there. I think that's what the book was missing for me fundamentally is feeling.
yeah. There's a massive character plot hole with that too, because it's said so many times that Letty couldn't put on an act. Letty
Mm.
couldn't pretend. She would show her emotions, and then she's the one who was hiding her real intentions the whole time. Doesn't make sense. Like it goes counter to what you're trying to show there with the character. And I didn't believe it either. And I didn't believe it because again I felt like it wasn't earned. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a
Mm.
favorite plot hole in this book? I do.
No, I don't think so. What's your favorite plot hole?
My favorite plot hole is the fucking they like put themselves in this, and I don't mean to shit on the book. I genuinely like didn't hate the book at all. I had
Yeah,
a decent time with it. There are just issues with it.
sure.
Um, so they like hold themselves up in Babel.
Mhm.
Like we can't get out. We can't do anything. We're stuck here forever now. Good luck to everyone. Abel comes by and he's like, "No, don't worry about it. We can get you supplies." And then they just can't get tea, and there's like a whole paragraph on how they can't get coffee and tea into this building, even though Abel is like delivering them goods this whole time. Like you didn't like we have a paragraph on how you're having weak tea because you can't get tea into the building and you refuse to have a strong cup of tea because you want it to. And then like in the next page, Abel's like bought blankets.
What, are they from within the tower though?
No,
I've
no, they're
completely
external. So
skimmed
he's
over that.
barricaded. He's created this barricade because they're doing this thing. He's bringing them supplies. He's bringing them fresh food and whatever, and that's all established. He's got like a little supply line, and they're like, "But we can't get tea in
Yeah,
here."
tea's the
I
most
was like,
important
"Get
thing.
wrecked!" And
Yeah.
also he literally has a bar that makes him invisible. And he's like, "Well, we can't
Mm.
go outside
Yeah.
anymore."
Yeah, I feel that it's the magic system that let it all down at the end,
Yeah,
right? Because like
but it was very cool.
it promised so much, and it could have been really. I was going to say really intricate, and it kind of was. It was set up to be,
It
and
was, but then it
then
was. I found it dumb
yeah, and then it
at
didn't.
the end.
She didn't use
Did
it
not.
to what you could have used it for.
Yeah.
But I think this is why, like as I say, it's not really a fantasy book. Then, like
Mm.
I feel like had it been a I don't know a Brandon Sanderson book, like he would have created this whole magic system about like this is how it works, you know. And I don't know if I don't know if that's a strong suit. I haven't read the others like we've talked about,
Yeah.
so I don't know. But I feel like the strong suit in this book, the thing that carried the book, was the theme, I guess, colonialism, but also her like use of language with like the amount of research that she's done. Like she's
Yeah.
done so much. Like she's done so much that she kind of wants to show it off. I think, which I'm fine with. You know, I like
That
that.
was the best part of the book, in my
Yeah.
opinion, was her showing off.
Exactly. All of the little info dumps about like I didn't mind
Yeah.
any of that. I thought it
No,
was
me either.
great. And yet I am a character driven reader. But yeah, I feel like the characters and the way that the magic system was used or not used is the thing that let it down. Oh well.
Look, this is one of those books where I have really mixed feelings on it
Yeah, same.
because the things I
Great.
loved, and the things I
Yeah.
didn't love, I effectively like really just ruined the reading experience.
Yeah.
Which is why like I'm kind of curious to read it again, maybe in like 5 or 10 years, just to see if anything has changed. But we've got to talk about the pacing before we before before we wrap up, because what Mrs. Kuang was that? It was so slow and detailed and purposeful in those first 2 to 3 books, and then all of a sudden it switched and it was so fast and it felt like whiplash. And then from that point, I just it completely lost me. I was like, yeah, it's moving fast and I don't care about any of it. So like, okay. And again, I didn't like actively hate the reading experience, but I was just like, it doesn't make sense to have all this build up for how quick. And this is a something that I really dislike with Stephen King as well. We have so much build up,
Mhm.
and then it's like done. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, moving on.
And the
I'm
payoff.
finished with this now. Like the payoff just isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is why I say I think it should have been 2 books, or there should have been a complete split in half or something like that, which is the Robin Swift origins, the coming from China, moving to England, all of that, and then the story about Babel and the war and the politics of it all. I felt like they're 2 separate stories, but instead of keeping them separate, she's tried to have that sort of slow build of like understanding where Robin's come from and what the political situation is, and introducing everything. And then, yeah, there's kind of like a switch to like, then suddenly you've got these big compressions of time in Babel, because obviously they're there for like 4 years or something for their academic studies. So, she's
You almost could
obviously,
have done it like year 1, year 2, year 3, year
yeah,
4,
yeah.
and that would have been really cool
Yep.
as
There's
well. But
a lot of solutions to it, and I think she's chosen the one that I think works the least well for pacing, because I think
but
everyone has issues
I also
with pacing.
wonder that that may not be a her thing. That may
Maybe
be a publisher
editing thing.
thing. No, no. Like, there was a real push for standalones when there was a lot of, series going
Yeah.
out, to get publishing deals, and potentially, like, she's just announced her 3rd standalone. So there was this
Right.
one, Catabasis, which
Mhm.
I haven't read, which I am curious to read, although I have heard
Yeah.
mixed things about that as well. But that's not necessarily something that will deter me from reading something. And this new one, I can't remember what the title is called. Like, it's literally just been announced. Are all standalones after the Poppy War. So I don't know whether it is a push from the publisher as well.
Okay.
To be like, I don't want a series. I want, because it could have been a series.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, this was 2022, so yeah, it could very well be something like that. I get the impression that she seems very set in how she likes to do things, so I feel like she wouldn't have been pushed around, compared to maybe some other authors. But I could be wrong. We don't know.
We don't know her. We don't know what pressure she was under.
Mm.
But I mean, all that to say, I guess overall thoughts from me is that I liked it and I didn't like it, and it was such a weird mix of down the middle because yeah, I know I've
Yeah,
said it a bunch of times, but like the
yeah,
stuff I liked in there, loved it. Very interested in seeing what else she does, but I don't think the book necessarily worked the way that I wanted it or expected it to work.
yeah. No, I agree with you. Like I'm still I don't know even how to tie it
Question
all
mark.
up because yeah, I don't.
Now I see why you don't rate anything.
Yeah,
It's really
that's it.
hard.
That's it. They mean nothing to me because I could rate it something one day and then think about it differently. I think my overall thoughts are it wasn't what I expected it to be. I went into it not knowing much, and I'm kind of glad of that, but also I feel like even then I still had wrong impressions of what the book
Mm,
was. But I think that's a good thing because of its main theme. Like I think to get people talking about any of the big themes in this book, like you kind of need to like have it as a bit of a surprise. Like this is hey, and this is actually what the book's about. Um, but but I also feel like it's I don't know, like it's got a wrong audience problem. Like it's talking about colonialism to the people who already know what that is and how it works and why it's important to be diverse and it's a bit
it
odd.
also like I guess treated the audience as dumb in some aspects, which was frustrating.
Yeah, yeah,
If you want to have an ambiguous theme
mm,
and let people make the connections. And
yeah,
if you want to be overt, then be overt. But
yeah,
don't do both.
yeah. It's a very unsubtle book.
Yeah, there's no
Like,
subtlety to it. But at the
no,
same time, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing
no,
for
same,
books to
same.
to not be
Yeah,
subtle. But it is a hard one to pin down.
I love the language stuff. Like I can't say enough how much I love that.
Mm,
I loved the little within the footnotes. There's information about words and the differences in translations between different words from the origins of a word from the Latin or French or whatever it might be. All of that stuff. I just ate that up, and I've the first like book or two of the book I've written so many little notes and underlined so much stuff. Like I was loving it so much, and then it just obviously got to that
even I've done a bit of
pacing
dog
issues.
urine. Sorry to the general public who I've really decided that aesthetics don't mean shit to me anymore, and I'm just going to treat books the way that I want to treat them. So
Definitely.
yeah, I've got dog ears, I've got underlines, particular footnotes that I've really enjoyed. Like, yeah, it was like I didn't hate the reading experience at all, and
No.
that's why it's really hard
Yeah.
to put down because I appreciated it for what it was. It's not the best book.
She writes really well. As I don't think
She's an
we
excellent
mentioned
writer.
that. Like the actual on a sentence level, like the way
Yeah.
she writes, and it's funny, and she gets the Britishisms really well, and it's like it felt like a British novel, like it was, that stuff, all fantastic.
The line by line detail is very well
Yeah,
structured and very well executed, which I think is why I'm like I will read more from her because
mm.
she's a very smart writer.
Yeah,
And you were saying that earlier that you can tell that she's an academic by the way that she writes,
yeah,
but also it's layman enough for anyone to
yeah,
pick it up and understand
yeah.
it.
It was a very fast read until maybe the last two books in there, but it was like it was a fast paced read. The
Mm.
sentence structure was like really. She writes very well, so yeah, I will read more by her as well.
Like even if I don't love it, I would still read more from her just
Yeah,
because of the way that she writes. So a very interesting experiment of a
yeah.
of a buddy read that we did.
It was a good choice for a
Y-
buddy read, and
Yeah,
like as a recommendation, like I would recommend people read this as
yeah,
well.
same.
I think it's one that everyone can get something out of. I think it's yeah, it's an unusual book. I think
Yeah, I've never had a reading experience like it before,
yeah,
and maybe that's the point. I don't know.
yeah.
But so was that your pick?
I think we
Table?
mutually
Okay,
picked
we
it.
mutually agreed upon it.
Yeah.
I basically just stolen the next buddy read off Ryan and said that I'm picking it. So I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to pick a fantasy. Now I have two for you to choose from. We haven't
Okay.
decided it, but I have two, and I'll hold them up. One is sci fantasy, which I know you don't like space wizards, so that could be
Okay.
interesting.
Space
Um,
Wizards.
so option one,
I knew what it was going to be when you
yeah,
said Space Wizards.
option one, Empire of Silence. Also, really devastated I can't find the other three or four books in this size because it's like perfect for my tiny hands and I cannot find them. This is a mass market paperback. So I'm curious about this one. I predict I will like it more than you. not so much for Space Wizards, but just because the pacing, like he was quite slow in this one, which I enjoy, a slow-paced book. The other one that I have is an intelligent, like a more intelligent fantasy that's quite thematic, and it's a standalone, and that is Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay.
Ah, cool. Yes, you've talked about this before on the podcast, I think, and I was
I meant
interested.
to read it for like 2 years. So this, I believe, is very society focused, very heavy world building, which again is something that I enjoy. So I'm going to leave those two with you. You can go and research, and you can tell me which one you would prefer. And then next time you can torture me with your with your pick. I'm trying not to get stuff that's too far out of the wheelhouse
That's
for
fair.
you, but those two I'm quite interested in.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you right now which one I'd probably pick
Okay,
out of the
go on
two. Oh, you would be Tigana for sure,
Okay,
because
all right.
I've already researched it because you mentioned it last time. So I was like, oh, that sounds quite interesting.
Let's do it. That is
Let's do it.
Q2 Buddy Read. I'll make a post about it for anyone who wants to join it and can come along to the Discord.
Nice.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
That was a good chat.
Good chat.
So we'd love to know, have you all read Babel? Like, what did you think? We'd love to know your thoughts and whether you agree with what we've said or if you have different opinions. Do let us know in the comment section below. If you liked our discussion today, please consider giving the video a thumbs up and stay tuned for more stuff that we're doing, and jump onto the Discord for our future buddy reads, which I guess we've now decided. So we do discuss what we read while we're reading it in our Discord there as well. And you can subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram to be notified of new stuff. Where else can they go, Chris?
They can go over to the website, which is genreblender.net, which will also have linked in the show notes below if you want to find me. I'm a fictional escapist pretty much everywhere, and I think Ryan is allergic to social media right now. So if you want to see Ryan, you really got to watch these videos.
That's it. Spoiler alert. Yeah. I'll be back at some point. When that is, I don't know. Taking a break. It's nice, actually.
Someone's been playing way too much Switch 2 over the last
maybe. All right.
Cool.
Till next time, everyone. Take care.
Ciao.
Yeah. Pokopia for the win.
Couldn't pronounce it, so I don't want to.
I had a feeling that was